I want to jump into our first question. Um, I would suggest that the present crisis that we are undergoing right now, and I say present because we have faced past crises, and I think we're pretty assured that there will be future crises, right? But the present crisis has exposed a number of truths about the local church. And so, my question is, how do you see the local church being impacted presently, uh, either positively or negatively? What are we seeing in the local church?
Randy, about the church in Latin America, when I see the statistics, Latin America is becoming the region with the highest indicators of COVID expansion. Countries like Brazil, Peru, Chile, and Mexico are on the list of the countries with large infections. For example, Colombia, in my country, yesterday we had 3,000 infections just in one day. It's the highest in our history. In other countries, the situation is being managed, but with direct implications for social life and the economy. So the church, as part of the ecosystem of society, has been impacted in many ways. According to the official pronouncement of the Latin American Evangelical Alliance, which is the alliance of national alliances of denominations and churches in Latin America, they say recently that the churches has been temporarily closed by government or rules to control the spread of a highly contagious virus. So we have now 3 months of extended quarantine, and the vast majority of churches are still unable to hold their regular worship and activities. So this has resulted in almost all of them having to take a big step into a digital and virtually interconnected world to maintain contact with people and also serving. So, however, in spite of the fact that this was an option that no church had to go through obligatory social isolation at other times of history, uh, anxiety, loneliness, and the need to be in community is something that is becoming more and more evident in the church, in members, in pastors. So, in the other hand, it has had to impact on economy area, since there are great challenges and responsibilities that churches and denominations have to carry out to continue the work of the church in a spiritual, social care, assistance, psychological support, etc. So we are highly impacted in this moment, and we are praying that the doors can be opened in a new kind of convivence that is waiting for everybody.
Mm.
This global pandemic made a big negative as well as positive impact in Indian churches. The negative impacts are, as per my understanding, happened on the church and church choirs, including the pastors and missionaries, because of our unawareness and untrained believers and pastors to survive in this negative situation. The churches operating in the persecuted areas and in underground situation, they are surviving with their vigilance and strategies. Most of our churches do not have any awareness and teachings on closing the door for the church and gospel workers. Nowadays, our churches are closed. The so-called buildings are closed because of this COVID-19. Maybe it will be closed in the future because of political interruption and other issues also. So we have to prepare to survive in this situation. Uh, Here in India, we have a lot of negative impacts in the churches. I'm willing to list out few. The first one is the church services are stopped completely. The Sunday services, fasting prayers, Bible studies, even the marriage services and the funeral also stopped here. We couldn't do the last ritual also. It's a very pathetic condition in India. And we are doing some ministries through medias, through the TV and other things. It will reach only the churchgoers or the believers, so-called believers only. But the remaining non-Christians, the non-believers, still now untouched in this time. So these medias, the new technologies are helping us to reach the Christians only. The main purpose of the church, not just to worship the Lord, not just to teach the believers. We have to share the gospel with others, but we are unable to do that in this time. And we are unable to do the follow-up work also. We are very difficult situation in India to travel from one place to another place. The logistic is closed. So we are unable to meet the new believers, to do some follow-up work, to answer their questions, to clear their doubts, to sit with them, to make fellowship. It's very difficult nowadays. And we, the leaders, are unable to visit the fields and the churches to encourage the missionaries and pastors. It is also difficult. And a lot of restrictions are there to the churches to do any social work also, especially in Tamil Nadu. We are unable to do the charity work publicly. The government ordered to hand over our things to the government or to get the permission from the government to do the charity work, to supply the needs of the needy people. So it's very difficult in this situation here.
Paul, you bring up something I want to ask about.
Yes.
Let's think about this for a minute. The COVID crisis is occurring
Yes.
In the midst of a lot of other realities.
Yes.
For instance, there are the political realities that complicate the situation. I'm thinking about you and Dimitri specifically have faced over the last 10 years a number of challenges. We're always facing challenges.
Yes.
One of the things that I think is important, and David, you mentioned this a moment ago. You said, never in history has the church been forced into this type of isolation. But we all have to acknowledge that the church has faced various challenges, real challenges historically. We can think of past famines, plagues, wars, political upheavals, and all of this impacts the church. But some of this is further complicated. There are layers of complications that we are facing. I was speaking with in our last Global Voices conversation with Alif, and Alif said in the Middle East, in North Africa, in the Middle East, he said this affects us, but understand we've been dealing with social collapse, we've been dealing with civil war, we've been dealing with failed governments, we've been dealing with persecution. So all of this combined presents us really unique sets of challenges. Dimitri, let me ask you just real quick as a follow-up, in a changing climate, okay, how is COVID-19 further complicated ministry, especially for you in Russia?
I can say really it's complicated. It's not really a complication. It's an opportunity for deconstruction, some of the old systems, or probably in just actually advancing into some of the new areas. Of course, there's the tragedies. Of course, the life loss and all of the pain that associated with this crisis. But at the same time, yeah, well, we still have to look for the opportunities, what we can do in the context like that. And for Russian church, I think this type of things are necessary, really. It's just culturally and historically. When everything goes smooth and nice for us, we tend to just fall asleep real quick. Seriously. And that's really, and that's why I like Russia, because it's a good place to exercise your faith because of the unpredictable environment. You never know what's going to happen next. So it's really kind of this situation that helps us to stay fit and alert, because that's exactly when we start tuning our ear to God, what the Spirit of God is saying. And because He's telling us to cross over, to go onto the other side through that crisis. And that's exactly what we have to listen to and tune into and help as many as we can to get over on the other side. So it's really, I mean, for us, it's been just an advancement, even though we're limited and we're kind of, we feel when, and we, I'll say, of course, we miss the meeting face to face. It's Facebook to Facebook or FaceTime to FaceTime is not really a substitute. But at the same time, we were able to advance into some of the areas we probably felt like, they're useful, they're always accessible, just like the special designated time for prayer. I would say, even just looking at my prayer life, it's really just took a totally different height. It's in the other level, because we used to go on the schedule and running our errands and just pray, Lord, bless this and that, and didn't even have time to really consult with Him. Instead of, He kind of places us in a condition where the thick fog, and we have to slow down so we won't miss our turn or just don't go in the ditch, and we just adjust our speed and tempo and just to the conditions. And that's exactly His desire, ultimately, to have a fellowship with us 24/7, to be online with Him nonstop, uninterruptedly. And yet our busy schedules, He had a hard time to have an audience with some of the ministries.
God has given us a global 7. He has forced us to stop. He has forced us to refine our attitudes and refine our habits, and to take stock of how we are doing spiritually, and so that we can engage in the mission of God much more revitalized than ever.
Amen. Amen.